Hi, welcome to Chad's Silversmithing. First, thanks for coming to my channel. I really appreciate it. If you wouldn't mind, would you hit the like button before you leave? That helps out with the promotion of my channel a lot, and I appreciate it if you do that. I'd also love to hear your input, so leave a comment in the comment section down below. So I've had numerous requests from people to do some cufflinks, which leads me to think that there are actually people out in the world who still use cufflinks. So I'm going to try to make some cufflinks today. The last time I think I wore cufflinks was when I had a rented tux. So I actually looked at some various designs online, and I looked at some for the finding part of it, and I looked at some old ones that Edie's father left her. And so I have some ideas about how to do it, and I'm going to show you how to make some cufflinks of one particular design. There's multiple types of backs for them. So before we get started though, I needed to thank some people. Thank you to my YouTube subscribers. You guys are awesome. We're getting close to 5,000. I expect probably in a week or two we'll be over 5,000. So thank you so much for your support, your kind words, and the donations that you give me, like the super thanks and the buy me a coffee things. I really appreciate those. That helps a lot with buying supplies and such. I also wanted to thank my patrons over on Patreon. I wanted to give a special shout out to my two newest patrons. I have Cynthia Z and Susan. I really appreciate you signing up. I hope you find some great stuff over there and meet some nice people. So thanks for that. That's the group that's paying for my premium content on Patreon, and I both appreciate financially what they're doing for me, and I also wanted to thank them for all of their knowledge and kind words that they provide over there. I have a lot of really talented people over there, and I'm enjoying learning from them, and I hope they're learning from me as well. So it's a great place over there. If you're interested in something like that, you should check the video description down below. There's information about the Patreon, as well as some other relevant links like buy me a coffee, how to get to my website, my merch store if you want to get some great Chad branded merch. You know, who doesn't want some of that? All right, let's get to this project. I based this design off of a pendant I made a while back. This is my design idea notebook here that I use. You know what, I never used to draw things up before I did them, but I found this to be uniquely useful as far as getting better at this. It's nice, kind of like graph paper, but it's not really graph paper. It's got little dots at the corner of each square, so it helps you to keep things proportional. It's nice. Those are available on my merch store. So I'm going to do a biohazard symbol, because I did one as a pendant once with a piece of this really garish dichroic glass, and I thought I'd do some cufflinks like that. I thought those are kind of fun. So, you know, you can make them for that toxic person in your life, I guess. Alright, so I picked a couple of stones. That was a bad joke, wasn't it? Okay, I got a couple of Chrysoprase stones that are a little bit cut roughly, so they look a little biohazardous to me. So we'll use those for our stone in each one. I'm going to use 3/16 bezel for this, so probably 26 gauge. If I have any left, I might have to use 28 because I don't know if I have any left. But for the bottom circle, I'm going to use some 16 gauge round. For these, I guess crescents, I'll use 14 gauge square wire, I think. And then there's multiple kinds of backs to these things. A lot of them you see have your, whatever your cufflink is up here, they'll have a split like this that is factory made, and it'll have a little hinge here and a kind of a lozenge shaped thing there that flips up or turns sideways. And I don't really have the ability to do that in a way right at the moment. I haven't thought of a good way to do it from scratch where it'll not get looser gradually over time. So I need to think about that a little bit before I do that sort. And I may come back and visit that in another video. But one of the types, and I remember these types because I used them once, was just, it's kind of a, they call it a button type, and it's got the whatever your cufflink design is up here. It's just got a bar here, and then it's got a disc that just barely fits through the buttonhole. So when you put it through, it's unlikely to come loose because of tension there and stuff. I measured some cufflinks that were similar to this. They had about 12 or 13 millimeter bars in the middle. And I looked up at the information. They had different information for the size of holes in sleeves, so you might have to check whatever shirt you're doing this for to see what kind of a size of a disc you need to make. But I'm going to go with the medium-sized one that they had on the chart that I saw, and it said 12 millimeters was a good size for that. So, or 10 to 13, I think is what it said. So I'm going with 12. And I pre-punched out some discs out of some 18 gauge sterling, pretty close to that size. So we'll use that for the discs on the back. So I think first let's make some bezels. Probably just make one and then make the other one off camera, so you don't have to watch me do the same thing over and over again. Save a little video time. I always use a pretty tall bezel and then I just file it down to whatever level I want it to be. I probably should get various sizes, but I'm inherently lazy and it's easier just to buy one size than to figure out what you need. I'll get this snugged up around this stone here. I always like the color of Chrysoprase. It's kind of it's almost an unnatural green, it seems to me. It's so bright, some of it. They used to describe it as the most valuable form of agate, is what I used to always hear it called. I'm curious if that's still the same, or if people consider something else more valuable. A lot of interesting stones introduced from various places around the world in recent years that might be more popular than Chrysoprase, that fall into that agate category. Those of you who've watched my videos before will be happy to know that I just ordered some new pads, so you'll be able to see better for a little while. I usually use the tips of the needle nose to reshape these. Just kind of gently pinch out those bends. You got pretty good on the size there. I think for this, for these guys, since there's going to be kind of a post sticking out of them, I'm going to use a little bit thicker sheet for the back. So I got a little bit of 18 here left over. Probably get it off of there. So I'm going to cut a couple of these off. That might be a little thinner than 18. Throw a couple of these in there just to be sure we got plenty. And then I'm going to push them up against the sides. Whenever you're using thicker sheet with a bezel on the bottom, it makes it a little harder to get the sheet up to temperature as quickly as the bezel gets up to temperature because there's that much more mass in it. So it takes a little more heating, kind of avoiding the bezel. When I was new at this, it took me a while to figure that out. I can trim off that excess. Now I'll just file the lip off of that. That's just a straight bezel cut. I'm going to be careful not to angle it under like that, because if you get too far beveled under, it'll start to cut into your solder joint there. Okay, so for time's sake, I pre-cut a few things. So I need to make 2 circles out of this 16 gauge round wire, and I measured these and they're 13 millimeters diameter, so I multiplied that times pi, and that comes out to be 40.82, so I just rounded up to 41 millimeters and cut 2 of those out of 16 gauge. So I'm going to make those into circles first. These ones, I actually bent a piece of wire to the shape, and they came out to be about that long, which is, let me see. I just used that as a gauge to cut the other ones, so I can check and see how long they turned out to be. They're about 34, 35 millimeters. So, but let's make the circles first, and then I'll make those other ones into these shapes and file them to taper like that. And then we'll be pretty close to assembling one, I think. So. Okay, got those guys lined up pretty good. Cut a couple of little pieces of solder here. You've never seen one of my videos before. I use primarily hard silver solder. And on rare occasions I use some easy, like if I'm doing a pin for a hinge or something, but generally it's all hard silver solder. So, and I do pick solder a lot. Pick soldering is one of those skills that I would recommend learning if you're new to this. It allows you to place solder really precisely and in the amount that you want, you know. And when I learned how to do that, it drastically improved my abilities. I'm going to take the little excess solder off and then round these out. Okay, I'm going to spend a little time getting these waves out of these little guys. I usually just look at them from the side, and then you can kind of manually bend those out with wire this thin. Everybody always wants to pound things, and I get that. That's sort of cathartic. But sometimes just doing something by looking at it from the side and straightening it out works as well or better. Alright, so I'm not sure how to make these the most easy way. I'll probably use these bail making pliers. These are handy for a lot of things. Let's see how big that comes out if I just kind of bend them around this. One thing I could have done is made a spring of these and then just cut off, lengths that were partial circles. I'm getting a little low on 14 gauge square, so I didn't want to do it that way. So I'm going to manually shape these a little bit. See how close we were on our surface here. Pretty close. Okay, and these are going to be like this. So I think I'll probably be able to cut these down. I'm going to bend them all like this, and then I'm going to file them so they taper in like this, and that's going to take a while. So let me see what I can do with this one, and then I'll do the other ones off camera probably. Just got to do 6 of them. So do 3 of those, solder this down, add the bezel in the middle, and then put the post on, I think. So I'm going to make the other ones of these. Be right back. So I got all of these guys made. Where's the middle? I think the next step is going to be to solder them together. I'm just going to try and line up it's kind of right to the center of each line there. You could just place a piece of solder there if you wanted to. You don't have to pick solder like this. I just find it convenient. Okay, so our next step then, I think, make sure these are pretty round. We'll just solder those on. Okay, let's solder these guys together now. I think I'm going to mount the bezel on the other side, like this. I think I might do it on a magnesia block too, so that I can kind of push it down in a little bit. Magnesia blocks are a little bit softer surface, so like push everything down so nothing's going to drop off or anything. And I think probably for each of these bezels, just sweating some solder on the back, flipping them over and soldering them on here, and then we'll add the backs for the cufflinks. then we'll be pretty much done. So let's sweat a little bit of solder on the backs of these guys. Kind of a big puddle. Okay, so now that we got the solder where we want it to be, we just got to kind of center it on these. Like I said before, I made a pendant with this design. I thought it came out pretty cool. So we'll see how these turn out. Alright, so now I just gotta, the trick here is, it'll be easy to melt the solder that's attached to the bezel, but in order to get it to stick to these other pieces, the stuff that's down below that's more massive and sort of insulated by the pad will be harder to get up to temperature, so we'll have to focus most of the heat there and not so much on the bezel. I look for the solder joint inside of the bezel. When it starts to liquefy again, then I focus inside of the bezel for a second. Okay. Make sure it really gets it hot enough, because that usually indicates we've gotten hot enough. So let's see. Alright. 2 little biohazard symbols. Now we just got to put those backs on. These guys we can solder on at the end. But first we need a vertical post there. And I thought I'd use, I have some of this, a little bit of this 12 gauge round I found. So let's cut some pieces of that. I think, what did we say? Height needs to be 12 to 13 inches. So let's make sure we have plenty for each of these pieces. I'm going to file the end flat and then I'll cut one and we'll make sure we have enough. Okay, so I'm going to file those down just a little bit. So the question is, do I solder it to this first? Looks like it'll fit right in there, maybe. Pretty close, anyway. I'm going to taper this just a tiny bit. Okay, I may do that, but I think probably I need to attach them to these first. So I'm going to attach them to the bottom side here like this. In order to do that, I'm going to sweat a little solder onto that side there. The trick is I should be able to heat this up to soldering temperature and just plop this in the middle and have it stuck there. So, see if my aim is any good. That looks pretty centered. Probably pretty good. So I filed it at 3, kind of slightly angled in. So it kind of forms a triangle going inwards like this slightly. Because the little nook that I've created by doing these things together creates a triangle. So probably, if I can get it to stay upright like that, it should solder in pretty nicely. Let's see. Let's flux it. Kind of a flux you can use sometimes to kind of stick it in there. That's probably okay. Set him off to the side so I don't remelt him by accident. Okay, a little bit of solder. Okay, I think that'll work. Let's see about this one. Sometimes I don't get things on perfectly straight and I have to reheat them and move them a little bit. That's what I was doing earlier when I was pushing that central circle around a little bit, because it wasn't quite where I wanted it to be. One of the cool things about silver is once you've kind of gotten the feel for heating things right, you can re-liquefy solder joints and move things around a little bit if you need to. Takes a little practice, but alright, so I think those are pretty much done. It feels like everything's on there pretty good. Doesn't mean I can't rip something off on the polishing wheel later. That would be par for the course for me sometimes. However, so far things look good, so I'm going to pickle these and I will polish those and then I'll set the stones for you. Okay, so I went ahead and I set one of the stones just so I didn't have to do it twice in front of the camera. But I think they came out pretty cool. I like it. Let me go ahead and set this other one. Put a little bit of tag board underneath it to cushion it and give it a little lift. I do this different than some people. I use the flat side of my needle nose pliers. It works well for me. It's not the only way to do things. So. Once I have it, pushing down, then I use the rounded outer part to burnish it. All right. So there's the Toxic Avenger cufflinks. So, like I said, these are the button type of cufflinks where you have a little button kind of thing that you pop through both holes. If I think of a way to create one of those swivel clasps easily from scratch, I will do that. If not, I will go ahead and show you how to attach a store-bought finding like that, if you'd like, to a pair of cufflinks at some point. But for now, there's the button type ones. I kind of like how they came out, so hope you do too. All right, well that was the biohazard cufflinks. I hope you liked that take on some cufflinks and learned something from it. If you did, make sure to hit the like button before you leave and leave a comment. I'd love to hear from you. I've met a lot of nice people here, and some of them through the comments, so I hope you guys have some time to take a look at some of my other content here. I have about 200 videos up now, and I think there's a wide variety of skills and tutorials to choose from, so you might spend some time exploring and then consider subscribing to the channel. And don't forget to hit the video description for some other relevant links. I hope you have a great day. Happy silversmithing. Take care.